The pearls of the mind are valuable and must be seriously safeguarded from the careless and the unconcerned. But to those who value truths explored, come, think with me. To those who know me, you should learn that I'm quite the TV buff. I'm a minor in my collegiate studies at Mercer in speech and dramatic arts. I love being on stage, and I think like a director, trained to do it. And I've directed a few plays and written a couple of plays, on the side, just things that I do and done along the way. But I've had the privilege of watching some really moving movies. I really like meaningful journeys on screen and on stage and in theater. I just like that experience. It's just part of who I am. And well, the true story of the father, his name was Joe, his father. Uh, Joe was the father. He had a son who was bullied seriously, and to the point that eventually the young man killed himself. It's one of those advocate films for against bullying and trying to help people deal with suicide. And it was just a great. It was just beautifully written, and I really was touched by it. But the son tells the father that he's gay, and the father, of course, can't handle it, and experiences a great bit of trauma around it, and things got really crazy, and the young man killed himself. So he, Joe, decided that he would hit the road and he would walk. He thought he'd walk across the United States in advocacy. This is a true story. This movie was adapted from a true story. And he walked across the United States. And walking, his whole theory was to ask the questions why his son chose what he chose, why he made the choices that he made, and what role did he play in. And he was doing a real guilt thing, but the journey, the walk was therapeutic. He thought he saw this, well, he thought he was with his son because much of the movie, he's interacting with this young man. And it took me by surprise when I learned that this was, he was playing that out in his head. He was dealing with some stuff, okay? But when I caught that, then the movie went to a whole deeper level for me. It just made, but the point I'm trying to make is that the young man, at the end, Joe, he would stop in various cities and he got a lot of help from a lot of people and he shared his story and that kind of thing. Touched a lot of folk, just touched a lot of people. Ran into this police officer whose son had been in a similar situation, but he hadn't killed himself and he was able to say to this young man, don't do to your son what I did to mine, kind of thing. So it was that kind of movement. And Paul talks about enduring hardships when you've decided what is important and what things are important and what things are not important. When you've decided what's important, you can endure hardships, and a part of enduring that hardship is the testimony that it gives to other people who are struggling with similar issues, and that's how we connect to one another. And see, for me, that was a very powerful turn because being fully human means being able to fully touch other individuals with transparency, with honesty, and with a lot of love. And most people are not able to do that. Most people they want to impress people. They don't really want to touch them. They don't want to make that intimate connection. They just want to impress people with their understandings about things. But Joe learned that he could not divest himself of himself, if you will, to experience his son. He couldn't touch his son, but through the loss of his son and the realities of all that he become aware of, he was now touching a world. I think that to be fully human, we have to learn to take the walk. We have to learn to take that walk with our mistakes. We need to walk until we can discover. When I say walk, I mean that metaphorically. Metaphorically, I mean we need to do the investigation. We need to do the walk that gives us a chance to be with ourselves and understand why we can't touch, why we won't touch, why we're resistant to touch, why we pretend to touch, why we may like we want to touch, when in reality we just want to impress people with what we've discovered about ourselves, or what we want to discover about ourselves, or what we think we've discovered about ourselves. We're more inclined to have people bow to our grandiosity than to touch, to make the intimate connection, to remove the veil so that someone else can see the tracks of your tears. Someone else can explore and understand that your tears have become my tears, and my tears have become your tears. That's a lifetime experience. You won't find that. That's just rare. You won't find it much. But there are people who are planted in God's world that touch. That for that moment in time, they touch your heart. And do you know how that person is given that kind of empowerment? From having his own heart or her own heart broken at the worst time of his or her life, during those formative years. Once a child's heart is broken, oh my God, it's forever. And how he handles the brokenness will determine its purpose. Yeah. Frederick Douglass said it right. It is far better to raise strong children, strong boys, than to have to be bothered with mending broken men. I tell you, protect the child, teach the child, teach them the language of feelings, teach them the power and the suggestion of intimacy. You know, it's important. To be fully human means that you need to go on the walk and discover from every step that you take why you took that step. You know, self-intimacy. That's what Joe was doing. Joe was alone with himself. He left his wife and his other son at home in the movie in the plot. And it was a true story, so that's what he did. And he walked away and he tried to deal with himself. I am just so awakened in my own spirit about that kind of approach. Really dealing with oneself. Thinking, not just thinking, but thinking hard about the proclivities, the barriers you've created to avoid the intimate touch, yet yearning with such steadfastness to be included in someone else's orbit of intimacy, to be a quiet bystander experiencing as if you were in the vanguard. Such a cheap intimacy. What about the call to be fully human? Father, all he had to do was step back. He made a statement in dialoguing with the police officer he met in the movie. He said something fascinating. He said this. He says, my father, his son's grandfather, who was a Marine, took the information of the young man's sexual preference far greater and easier than he did. Which he said really made him have to think, forced him to do some thinking. And I said to myself, I bet it did. You know, because until we have the courage to be fully human, we can't accept diversity. We can't accept that everybody's not like I am. In order for me to be comfortable, everybody's got to be like me. That's just the way that is. Take the walk, baby. You need to be walking right now. Walk through that storm and discover that what makes us unique is diversity. What makes us the same is what makes us different. Fully human. That's the goal. That should be the goal of every individual, to be fully human, to be able to experience every emotion that can be allowed to be experienced in one day. Take the roller coaster, baby. Up and down, upside down. You need that to become fully human. It's a walk. I thought, what a beautiful image to use for the idea of dealing with selfness, taking the walk. He walked all across the United States. And then a truck driver had fallen asleep and killed him while he was walking. Take the walk. Listen, before I sign off tonight, you can email me at all lowercase letters, thenighttalker@yahoo.com. Or if you like to text or call and leave a message, you can do that at 478-254-9013. Look forward to hearing from you. Our time is past and gone, but the journey moves on forward and upward towards Him. Until we meet again, consider the joy of this part of the journey.